want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Sony's Morbius has been highly anticipated by fans, but also often delayed due to COVID-19. So, the film is finally coming out. How does it hold up in the new Sony Spider-Man universe? Well, in it, Jared Leto plays Dr. Michael Morbius, who seeks to cure his rare blood disease by injecting himself with the DNA of vampire bats. The plan works, but it also turns him into a blood-drinking superhuman. He's able to control his bloodlust, but the same cannot be said for his similarly afflicted best friend, Milo, played by Matt Smith, who uses his powers for evil. Now, you've gotta hand it to Sony. Their extended Spider-Verse, or as they prefer to call it, Sony's Spider-Man universe, has worked a lot better than anyone really thought it would. Venom and its sequel were able to overcome some pretty terrible reviews to become box office juggernauts, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has actually become kind of a classic. Now, with Spider-Man No Way Home opening the door to allow the extended Spidey universe to mingle with the legit MCU franchise led by Tom Holland, Morbius could indeed become part of the MCU, although it seems kind of unlikely at this point. Morbius was shot before No Way Home, but there are enough hints dropped here that clearly Sony is intending to do a lot more with the character in their extended Spider universe, meaning he's probably going to go head to head with Spider-Man, although I would imagine it probably won't be Tom Holland's Spider-Man. More than likely, if they do an Amazing Spider-Man 3, he would go up against Andrew Garfield, or possibly even Tobey Maguire, or maybe even both. Now, Morbius is kind of similar to the Venom films. It's a lot more modest in scale than anything in the MCU. This is light, fast-paced superhero action. It runs a lean 100 minutes. Probably cost about a third or maybe even a fourth of what Spider-Man No Way Home did, so don't go in expecting a huge scaled superhero epic. You'll be disappointed if that's what you want. However, if you don't mind a smaller scaled addition to the franchise, you'll find that Morbius actually works relatively well as decent entertainment. Jared Leto makes for a surprisingly likable Michael Morbius. It's rare to see him in more heroic parts, with him often playing villains these days, but he's admirably straightforward, maybe even low-key as the heroic Morbius pre-transformation. Morbius presented as a kindly doctor who's eager to better mankind, although he knows he's fighting against the ticking clock, with his disease on the verge of ending his life prematurely. He also bristles against his physical limitations, explaining his relationship with Adria Arona's Martine. She's a medical associate of his who obviously carries a big torch, but he's unwilling to go there with her because he figures he'll soon be dead. His only real relationship is with Matt Smith's Milo, a similarly afflicted billionaire who bankrolls his work, while a wildly underutilized Jared Harris plays their father figure, a doctor who also happens to be Milo's full-time caregiver. The relationship between Morbius and Milo grounds the film somewhat, making the latter's eventual transformation into a villain carry a bit more pathos than you'd expect. As you see, Morbius is forced to go up against his own best friend, the only real friend that he has. Once Morbius becomes strong, Leto gets the display of physicality we haven't really seen in a lot of his more recent roles, with him impossibly chiseled, while he also gets to mix it up in a few quick fight scenes. The transformation into the vampire side of Morbius is done through CGI, with the vampire aspect of him kind of peeking out anytime he starts to hunger for human blood. Leto is a divisive figure, but I think he's going to win over a lot of people here. And also, I find that Morbius, despite being kind of a vampire movie, has a lot more in common with something like the Wolfman, in that he has this transformation that he undergoes that he can't control. You see, Dracula is always Dracula, but the Wolfman sometimes is just a nice guy who happens to become a wolf that can't control himself, and Morbius, when he's in his vampire state, finds it difficult to control himself. Meanwhile, Matt Smith seems to be having the time of his life as the scenery-chewing bad guy, going purposely over the top as Milo begins to relish his new powers. He goes, of course, to a bar to pick up chicks, because that's always what they do in these movies, right? Director Daniel Espinosa similarly has fun with comic book origins, with the cinematography giving this a bright, colorful look that's a far cry from the more noirish approach of something like The Batman. Espinosa also has fun with the horror aspects of the plot, even using an iris out at one point, and he stages one really cool hospital attack sequence in a way that seems to be paying homage to An American Werewolf in London. It's not particularly scary, and it's all very PG-13, but it has a bit of style. However, Morbius does have a few issues. Notably, both Jared Harris and Adria Arona are wildly underused. Both disappear from large stretches of the film and could have used a lot more screen time. Harris in particular is such a great actor. Why is he given such a nothing role? I really expected him to emerge as like a villain or something, but he does pretty much nothing here. Also, a bickering cop pair played by Tyrese and Al Madrigal add nothing to the plot except for a little tacked on comic relief. Why bring Tyrese into a superhero movie if he's not going to get any action? I don't understand it. I mean, it's Tyrese. Morbius also rushes towards its climax similar to the last Venom film, as if they ran out of money and had to wrap things up quickly. I do wish Sony had pumped up the budget a little bit more to give the character a bigger launch, but then again, keeping it modest means it doesn't have to open to the Batman numbers to make it a success and continue the franchise. And sure enough, if you stay through the credits, there are a lot of hints that Sony is planning on developing Morbius a lot more. Whether or not it's going to be a Morbius 2 or an Amazing Spider-Man 3 or something else remains to be seen. In the end, Morbius is a decent enough start for the latest addition to the Sony Spider-Man universe. While I doubt fans will be clamoring to have him join the MCU right away, it would definitely be cool to see him show up in perhaps another Spider-Man spin-off, especially if Sony ever manages to finally entice Andrew Garfield to reprise the character in a legit Amazing Spider-Man 3. Oh, if only. Time will tell. Until then, I give this a not bad 6 out of 10.
Michael, what have you done?
I was trying to help people. But the cure.
It's a curse.
Michael.
I have powers that can only be described as superhuman. But there's a cost. Now, I face a choice. To hunt. And consume blood. Or die.
We all have monsters within us. It's up to us to control it.
What if I can't?
Michael Morbius. You've been given a gift.
Not exactly.
Time to let go of what you used to be.
Discover who you're meant to be.
All our lives we've lived with death. Why shouldn't they know what it feels like for a change? Just accept who you are.
The bad guy.
Morbius.
Holy water? Really?
Yeah. You ever see Lost Boys?
Story of my life.
A new Marvel Legend arrives exclusively in movie theaters April 1st.